Hi everyone. Today, let's talk about advanced micro devices, ticker symbol AMD. Every Friday, I'm going to talk about my position on various popular stocks, and this week is AMD. AMD is a chip manufacturer, and their primary competition is Intel. And some say Intel is a very strong competitor, but I'm going to show you how AMD is a very strong and up-and-coming company. For example, when put head-to-head with Intel's 9th generation i7, the Ryzen 7 is considered to be a better CPU. As always, there will be some jelly at the end, which is something I enjoyed outside of the markets. If you have big dreams like buying this 4-bed, 6-bath mansion outside of Las Vegas, or if you're just getting started on your financial journey, definitely like and subscribe. It has a very large, modern, open concept living room, a surprisingly minimalist dining room. It has a wine rack built into the wall of the kitchen, but the ovens are on the other side of the wall, which is a little weird. It has a walkout master bedroom with a built-in TV and fireplace. It has separate sinks in the master bedroom with a wall of marble, which is directly connected to the master closet. To keep your dreams at the front of your mind, like and subscribe. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So who is AMD? They are primarily a chip maker. You could say they are primarily focused on gaming laptops and gaming equipment for now, but they are quickly moving into other industries. AMD does have one of its processors in the MacBook Pro with the 5600M, but more notably, they have taken over the console game. They will be in the PS5 and the Xbox Series X next generation systems. They do have systems available for servers, but this business has a lot of room to grow for them. They also produce GPUs. Just in case you're not familiar, a GPU is a system specifically designed to process graphics. So besides the fact that the tech sector is going straight up, if you've been paying attention to the NASDAQ, why do I care about a simple chip maker? Well, if you look here, you can see all of the different applications that they are currently working their way into. Machine learning, or things like AI, blockchain technology, which has been around a little bit but is expanding rapidly, high-performance computing, things like supercomputers, which are focused on running huge data sets for certain companies. Their systems give you the freedom to overclock for specific utilities, and they are also working their way into the VR space. And they do a few things beyond just chips. So they do have cooler systems, they do run a little bit of security systems, GPU, CPU media, and controller hardware. And finally, their work with semiconductors is really what's allowing them to beat the competition right now. Speaking of competition, their primary competition is Intel. Now, Intel is about 5 times as large as AMD. Intel's market cap is right around $250 billion, while AMD is only around $60 billion. Now, the rest of this article has a lot of tech stuff that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but if you want to read it, I will leave a link in the description. But the bottom line here is that AMD is outperforming the i7 processor in laptops, and the i7 is Intel's best chip available for laptops. So let's get into some AMD analysis. They say here they remain positive on AMD given that they will make $400 million in server revenue in second quarter, which is about 10% of the market share in CPUs. They are also making some money from GPUs with decent demands. Then it goes on to talk about the PS5 as well as the Xbox Series X and whether it will launch globally or in certain areas. And if it launches globally, that will lead to a high demand for AMD, which gives them a price target of $66 per share. A separate article talking about Intel says, the microprocessor company has benefited from a surge in PC purchases, but continues to fend off a strong challenge from rival AMD, which continues to gain market share as Intel has struggled with manufacturing issues. Some analysts note that the tailwind enjoyed by Intel could reverse as the company cuts down costs. So the main takeaway there is that AMD is taking away market share, even though it's a much smaller company. And I think the main reason for this is that their chips are just better. They are producing a better product, and people are starting to notice on a scale that they haven't really before. Now, this is further illustrated here when it talks about Intel versus AMD. It says many have given up on Intel because they're losing the CPU war to AMD. It then goes on to say a bunch of good things about Intel, but remember, Intel is a $250 billion company versus AMD at $60 billion. So it's expected that Intel is going to have some advantages, but the fact that AMD is winning the CPU war is certainly relevant to investors like me. Moving on to the Motley Fool's analysis of AMD. It says here AMD is a semiconductor manufacturer, which we've already talked about, and that they have maintained a long-term vision to refocus on technology, chip design, and better investment returns. It says, despite being a bumpy road, AMD is currently up 2,000% since the start of 2009, but it still generally plays second fiddle to Intel and NVIDIA, based on the amount of market share it owns. Intel makes CPUs and NVIDIA makes GPUs, mainly for graphics and some AI processes. But despite that, AMD has made great strides in giving both of its peers a run for their money. If you're starting to notice a theme here, AMD is starting to encroach on its competitors' territory and take market share away. Next, it asks, is AMD a millionaire maker stock? Well, right now, at a $60 billion market cap, you could already consider it a millionaire maker stock. Just a few years ago, it was trading for around $2, and now it's trading for around $55. So here's what I mean. In 2016, you can see here the price was right around $2, $1.98, $2, and then it started steadily rising. And since then, it's been basically a rocket ship. It's gone straight up. We had a little peak here, a dip, and then we went straight up some more, all the way to a peak around $56. And right now, it's sitting at around $53. So all the way from $2 to $56 is well over a 2,000% gain. Moving in here to the daily chart, you can see the actual peak was closer to $59 or $60. And then during the downturn in March, the March lows were around that $40, $39.82-ish range. And then we went right back up to the $56 type range. So we're a little bit below where we were at the highs, but it has recovered well compared to the rest of the market. Going back to the Motley Fool, the article goes on to say that the chip industry is massive, and with Intel and NVIDIA with valuations of $250 billion and $229 billion respectively, there's still plenty of room for growth. They say despite AMD having very large peers, they aren't just picking up the scraps. Their lineup of CPUs is superior to Intel, as we already mentioned, and NVIDIA, which charges a premium for its GPUs, has made use of some AMD products in their server centers, as well as NVIDIA getting kicked off of the next generation consoles where AMD has taken their place. It goes on to say that even if cloud-based gaming kills game consoles at some point in the future, AMD chips are still going to be needed to power the cloud systems that run cloud gaming. The article also says it's unlikely that consoles will go away in favor of cloud gaming, and I just think this is short-sighted. At some point in the future, everything will be streaming off of servers and we won't need to do consoles anymore. But I think that's a little bit in the distant future, and it's short-sighted to say that we will be stuck to consoles and hardware like we see it today. So to answer the question, is AMD a buy right now? We have to keep in mind that although this is a tech company, they are still in the semiconductor industry, and that factors in manufacturing, which is cyclical in nature. And it shows here that AMD's revenues have been pretty wild. During the dot-com bubble, they were a little over $4.5 billion, and then they dropped below $3 billion. And then right before the Great Recession, they were over $6 billion, all the way back down to around $3.5 billion, and currently sitting at $7.245 billion. So is this time different? It shows here that AMD has made $431 million over the past 12 months, out of a revenue of $7.25 billion. Now that's only a 6% margin, which is not amazing, but the fact that they are making free cash flows while paying down their debts is significant. It says in March of 2020, AMD had reduced its debts by $488 million, and increase their cash on hand or cash equivalents to $1.39 billion, which means they are in better shape than they have been in quite a while. To summarize for this article, they say, given the size of AMD, they don't think that this is a millionaire maker stock from this point, but they do say that AMD is more of a value than Intel, and over the long term, they think AMD will be the superior stock. Just to give a little bit of the bear case here, Morningstar gives AMD 1 star, and they think the current fair value for AMD is only $25 per share, which means it's currently trading for 2.12 times fair value. They say Intel remains a dominant player in the processor market and has long-term advantages over AMD. Also, NVIDIA is far ahead of AMD in terms of GPU technology. I would say that's arguable since AMD recently took NVIDIA's spot in next-generation consoles. They also say that AMD lacks the size to generate and sustain long-term momentum against the likes of Intel and NVIDIA because of their deeper pockets. Based on all of that, their 2021 forecast is around $42 for AMD. And based on their chart, you can see the total return has far outweighed the quantitative fair value estimate for quite a while. So to summarize, I am a bull on AMD. I think they are going to continue to take market share away from Intel. I think NVIDIA will be a little bit tougher in terms of a competitor, but I think Intel has reduced their innovation and AMD is taking action on that. And that is demonstrated by the fact that AMD's chips are currently outpacing i7 processors in laptops. Full disclosure, I am currently short some puts on AMD. But of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes, and do your own research before taking a position. Comment down below if you're going to buy some AMD, or if you already own some AMD. Tell me your thoughts on what made you buy it in the first place. Definitely like if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. And with that, let's get to the jelly. So today's jelly is Seth Everman. He is a musician who is very popular on YouTube. This video has over 5 million views, and his channel has almost 300 million views. He's very talented, and he brings a very unique sense of humor. As you can see here in his face, he seems very serious, but he is definitely not. He also manages to pack a lot of content into 39 seconds. So here's what that sounds like. So that was the whole video. I did not cut that short in any way, but that was his version of how The Weeknd came up with Blinding Lights. Let me know in the comments what you thought of his music style. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and have a great day.